Hello there, welcome to yet another exciting episode of The Headhunter with me, Laban Cliff. Coming to you from Kofisi, Africa, and we're grateful for the support we get from them, beautiful spaces, and just looking at the future of work. And speaking about the future of work, looking at what's really happening in this digital disruption and this new way of doing things, I would say, in different areas. We always want to talk to leaders and we always want to hear from themselves, really, how do you stay ahead and how do you get yourself on the headhunters list? A sector that has, you must say a lot digitally disrupted as well is in the financial sector. And already glad now to speak to a gentleman who's well accomplished in this space. Today, we have none other than Mr. Martin Mugambi, who's the CEO and Managing Director of Citibank in East Africa. Take a look at his profile. An interesting profile, you must admit. Well, Martin, congratulations for your career strides. First of all, just talk to us about your journey. I think that's quite critical for our audience as well. Looking at your profile, I think anyone would just say, "Wow, that should be me one day."
Thank you, Laban, and thank you for having me on the set. It's good to see you again. You're looking well.
Appreciate it.
And yeah, my journey is interesting. I don't know where to start, but let me start perhaps from when I finished high school here in Kenya in 1988. Had the privilege of going to St. Mary's School for my studies when I was a primary and secondary school student. And I had the good fortune to finish St. Mary's as the head boy in 1988, which really set me up for a journey that in some ways I can only be thankful for. St. Mary's was a school owned by the Holy Ghost Fathers, and when I finished in '88 as head boy, they awarded me a scholarship to study in the U.S. in a Holy Ghost Catholic school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, called Duquesne. So these Holy Ghost Fathers actually opened the door for me to go to the U.S., and this was a tuition scholarship in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, very conservative state in the Midwest, I would say. And started my journey in '89, where I was an undergraduate, studied finance in Duquesne University, graduated with a finance and international business degree in 1994. But it was not all, roses and smooth sailing. It was hard work. It was committed hard work, and I had to, work on the side. Yeah, I delivered pizzas. I worked in restaurants. I washed dishes. As much as I had a tuition scholarship, I had to sort of sort myself out in terms of the journey, and that's where I also learned the benefit of hard work, looking after oneself. Yeah, being responsible for what you accomplish, and graduated in '94. Started a career with a consulting firm in Pittsburgh. My journey then continued where I did my MBA again at Duquesne University, and that's actually one of the personal highlights, because I went to school at night. I went to night school, did my MBA at night, and financed that myself, working during the day as a consultant for 2 years. And graduated in '97 with an MBA in finance.
That MBA, I mean, I really want to make sure, first of all, I get it right. Did you always know it was going to be finance? I mean, you're in a finance field right now.
Yes.
And looking at that bit, and it's interesting, actually. I actually served as well as a school captain.
Yes.
And I think there's those lessons, you just draw for me the lessons from St. Mary's as a head boy. Yeah. And then now you going and washing dishes in the States. I mean, as a head boy, I'm sure you'd actually ask your juniors to do that. So I'm looking at the lessons there.
The lessons, yes. Finishing high school, of course, I was very keen on exploring what journey I would take. But as a young man at 18 years, you really don't quite have a sense, right?
from undergrad to now you've focused into finance.
Yes.
And then, you know, the MBA program.
Yes.
And just the leadership. The Headhunter speaks a lot into the MBA folks, guys who are that really core in business in mid-tier level management. So it will be interesting to get your lessons around your MBA program as well.
So my MBA was actually, I would say, the highlight of my educational journey, because not only did I pay for it myself, and till today, Laban, I keep the cancelled checks of me paying for that program over 2 years, slogging during the day, and I keep them. I've actually put them aside. And
is this for your
this is to show my children that this is how it came, right? Nothing came easy. So lessons learned: one, hard work. Hard work is really, there is no secret to success in life. It's about hard work. Really putting a goal and going for it, despite the odds. Just stick to it. And that tenacity saw me through that period. And just discipline of choosing, you know, what you can do and what you cannot do. So I set my goals to get in that MBA. I believe that education is a shield. It's a shield that shields you from what I would call challenges of life. Once you have the shield and the tools, then it's really about how you execute. And I had the fortune of having parents who are very focused on providing us a good education. We have 5 siblings, 4 sisters, no brothers. All of us are educated. All of us have master's degrees. One of them has a PhD. And the one lesson they instilled in us was that education is a great equalizer. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what your last name is. Once you have that, then you have the tools to succeed. So I invested deliberately on my MBA. And at Pittsburgh, where I was, Duquesne University is a solid school, but it's it's a mid-class tier 2 college, not Ivy League. And when I was then applying for jobs after my MBA, I also keep a stack of my rejection letters.
I thought you were headhunted right from your MBA.
Oh, this story actually develops much better.
So they come straight to your class and they say, no, ways matter. We need to get
Ivy League schools headhunt.
Okay.
The other schools, you slog for it. So I did get some interest in, some firms who are interested in me, but a lot of the big tier 1 global banks just said, not yet ready, no experience, etc.
Do you ever get a rejection from Citi?
I'll come to that.
Okay.
I will come to that because it's an interesting question, right? So this is where, again, hard work and somebody opening a door and being in the right place at the right time counts. So take a step back, earlier years in Kenya, we had the opportunity to host a young lady who came to Nairobi from the US as part of the Peace Corps. And Peace Corps is like a US program that college-going kids sign up and they go into foreign countries and they have a host family. So we had a host daughter stay with us. And interestingly enough, I didn't know at the time, but this young lady's father was the general counsel that was doing work for Chase Manhattan Bank. General counsel, Chase Manhattan Bank. So 97, I graduated. Here is Martin looking for work. Spoke to my sisters. She said, do you remember Nina Beatty? She stayed with us. Right to the Dutch. He does work with the Chase Manhattan Bank. So I did. And he forwarded my interest to the president of Chase Manhattan Bank at the time.
Wow.
A gentleman called Thomas Lebrec. And Chase called me for an interview. Called me for an interview, not a job. Just get into the door and then hold fort. And Chase only recruits from Ivy League schools. So Wharton, Harvard, Yale, etc. And here I am from Pittsburgh, also in the interview panel. And I just needed that door opener. And once that door was opened, I went in and shot the lights out, and I got an offer from Chase Manhattan Bank. And my career started in New York in 1998 with Chase.
Must have been cutthroat. So you come in here.
When I look at that, Laban, I don't say that is ascribed to the fact that I'm a special person. But I had the opportunity where somebody opened the door for me. And you just need those opportunities where somebody gives you a break and you walk through and prove yourself.
There's a very strong correlation with that. And you mentioned about your auntie giving you a non-paid internship.
Absolutely.
Which many of the young folks will be like, oh no, I just want some bit of stipend and stuff.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And then that now relates as well to, you know, the opportunity you got, the door being open for you as well. I think, is it about surrounding yourself with the right people, being at the right place at the right time?
I don't know if you're a football fan. Have you heard the phrase, the hand of God?
The hand of God, of course, yes. Across sports.
There are points in my journey where I see elements of the hand of God.
Yeah.
Right? The fact that we had that student stay with us, Peace Corps,
yes,
adopted family, or host family. I graduate, the father works with this big bank. I get an opening to interview, not a job, not a handout, just go interview. Those are events that happen where they don't happen often, but when they do, you have to be clear that this is something else. Yeah?
This is very interesting, Martin.
This is something else that has worked for you. So my
commutes.
career started that way.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I continued for 3 years with Chase Manhattan Bank. I worked in London for New York for a year, London for a year, Johannesburg for a year, and then back to London.
Wow.
And at that time, I met my wife, future wife, in London when I was stationed there for one of my rotations. And then I interviewed with Citi. Citi was looking for associates to join at the time the Africa program. So I interviewed with Citi, and I was fortunate enough to not only do well, but I was interested in coming back to Kenya. My life has been very interesting because I spent 25 years as a diaspora.
Yeah.
Between the US, the UK, Johannesburg, where I spent 13 years of my life. So at some point, I was looking to make my way back home. And in choosing Citi, I was looking for an international bank that is in the region. The choices were between Citi, Barclays, and probably Standard Chartered.
Yeah.
But luckily enough, Citi was interviewing in London, they were interviewing associates, and a bunch of our emerging market CEOs were the ones doing the interviews. So of course I went for it, signed up for it. And I got hired. It wasn't, it was now leaving essentially the big money centers, coming back into the region. And my first landing slot was in Tanzania for a year.
I thought it was in Nairobi.
No? Tanzania for a year.
Yes.
As part of a rotation, an Africa rotation. Did that and then moved to Johannesburg and joined what would be the corporate finance business, which is really a unit that does structured debt transactions across Africa. And I joined that team as an associate VP, as they call the terminology in US banks. And rose all the way to a managing director over 13 years. When
we come back right after the break, Martin will just be sharing with us the lessons in leadership as well, and also just a bit more on the finance space and with geopolitics. Kenya, we're going into an elections in a few months. What are the investors saying? How are the numbers looking? Don't go too far. Welcome back to The Headhunter with me, Laban Cliff, coming to you from Kofisi, Africa. A very interesting conversation with Mr. Martin Mugambi, the CEO and Managing Director at Citibank East Africa. First bit of the show, we spoke about largely not his current role, but how he began. And we started the journey straight from St. Mary's. Martin, most CEOs will not look at that, look at the rearview mirror, if I may. And for you, I think looking at your strides, from St. Mary's to Pittsburgh, now back to the region, what are some of the lessons that you'd actually share in leadership that have propelled you this far?
Okay, thank you, Laban. And it is also almost therapeutic, looking back, at that journey and talking about it, because you almost relive it. But when I think back about the lessons, it is very clear that one has to have certain anchors that define who you are. And I think my anchor has always been one of being very disciplined towards having a goal and going for it. This has been something that came from my parents, because they were not particularly people of means. They were an average family and made choices that came to define us, and also sacrifices. And those sacrifices are always with me. So I think the first lesson I would like to particularly tell young people is, don't be afraid to fail. You will find failure, you will find setbacks in your journey, but have the discipline to keep going, to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. Because ultimately your ship does come in, right? Despite the challenges. And then 2, take some risk in life. Take some risk, and calculated risk. The younger you are, I think the better time to take risk, because you have time to change course, to pivot, to try new things. When you start to feel the warm embrace of comfort zone, that's dangerous.
You know why I'm laughing is because you mentioned about your London and experience, and then trying to move back home. And that's where you met your wife. I think that was a risk, to be honest, because
it was a huge risk.
You've been in diaspora, what, 25 years? 25 and now you're deciding, okay, well, I want to go back home. I want to do it in the emerging market, for instance.
So if I follow my journey from New York to London to Johannesburg, back to London, to Johannesburg to Zambia.
Oh, you went to Zambia.
Tanzania, Zambia. Tanzania, Joburg, Zambia, then Kenya.
The family moving? Okay, now
I only got a family when I was in Joburg for 13 years. Both my kids got, on there. We had gotten married in 2006. My wife moved to Joburg to follow me. And we started pretty much our family there. And for my sins, I also hold as an Afghan passport.
Fantastic.
But what does it say? It says that I have deliberately moved around. And each move comes with a risk. It's new territory, new culture, new learnings. And you could also struggle in each move. Moving away from what I'd call my traditional background, which is I came from investment banking into corporate finance, essentially doing structured deals. And this is where, again, that risk-taking element comes in. Somebody challenged me, why don't you now go and run a business? Go and actually run a franchise that takes care of people, takes care of the whole gamut, and instead of being just a transactor, specialist. And that happened when I was in Johannesburg. And I then took up the challenge and applied to be the CEO in Zambia, an off-beaten track. I've come from London, New York, etc. Then I went to join the Citi team in Zambia and run the business there for 2 years, completely off the track.
Fantastic.
And from Zambia, I had a family issue that I needed to rush back home to in Kenya, and left Citi, which was my home, right? And joined CBA at the time, became NCBA as Group Executive Director, and then came home with them. So came from a global bank into a local bank. Now, that transition is also, it can, you can look at it different ways, but 2 different types of institutions. Still a very credible institution, no doubt, but different. So what I want to, again, underscore that second point is, do take risk in your career. Take calculated risk.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. And don't get comfortable, because when, comfort zone sets in, then that is really an enemy. So when you take risk and calculated risk, it actually propels you to the next thing.
Great.
And I shifted from being a specialist to a general manager. So by the time I rejoined Citi in April 2019, the story of the prodigal son, I was ready to come back and take on this role. So I had the privilege of doing that.
I cannot imagine what's behind your computer, I think in your corner office. Just tell to us some bit of facts and figures, or some bit of intel into what are the investors saying? I think at Citi you sit and you look at the global financial markets.
Yeah.
We've struggled as well with COVID, I think, issues of COVID. Kenya is going through an election as well. You have very good insight on the region.
Yeah.
What would you say regarding, investor relations? You mentioned even about the diaspora remittances. That's quite interesting to look at.
Yeah.
So what are investors saying about the region, especially at this time, based off on those geopolitics and geo-happenings?
Okay. So Kenya is in a good place, and you do not appreciate just how good we have it until perhaps you live out or you travel out. But having an election the election will come and go. August 9th will come and go. And there's a lot of optimism from our customers in Kenya at the moment. Remember, we've survived a 2-year pandemic. That was a 1 in 100-year event that could really have been a very different outturn for Kenya.
As we close the show, what are the top 3 aspects that you look out for those you'd want to fish to your headhunter's net?
Point 1, passion. When we are recruiting young men and young women, typically by the time you come to the interview and by the time you get shortlisted for a position, you are probably smart, and you're competing against other smart people. But I look for passion and willingness to learn. The second point I want to say is be prepared to work hard. I may have mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again. Citi is a meritocracy. Doesn't matter, Laban, what your last name is, where you've come from, or where you've been. Once you are in the firm, what is ahead of you is determined by meritocracy, by hard work, by leveraging your contacts, by bringing your A game every day. Number 3, and I want to sort of talk to more the leadership side of things. Leadership is an evolving art, because certain strengths get you to a certain point. But I think the higher order leadership is more about being empathetic. It stops being about the strengths of Martin as an individual, and it becomes about the folks that you're leading. How impactful are you as a leader? How do they view you? How do they trust you? For us to really strive, those in positions of leadership, to be more empathetic, especially given the challenges we have, where we've come from with COVID, that has changed a lot of things, and how we expect to succeed in the future, right? That element of being empathetic, leading by personality, leading by what you stand for, that to me is more powerful.
I know you're all asking for this question, but I'll throw it back to him. Just lastly, as he put it up in his sentences, it's what keeps you awake at night and what next for Martin?
Wow, what keeps me up at night? Laban, I've had a journey that has been very fulfilling, and when I think about what keeps me up, I have learned to understand that business or material success is not everything. To me, my anchor is my family. My anchor is my family. What keeps me up at night is if my family is not in a good place. I have 2 children, I call them 2 lovely investments. The wife who is the real boss. Those are the people that I worry about. I can lose sleep over my family. But I don't tend to lose sleep about the business, because the business will be there. It's never that serious. You can always figure it out. But your family, you can't figure it out. You have to get that right. So what keeps me up is really the well-being of my family. That's the only thing that I really stress about. Everything else, it's never that serious. You will sort it out.
You'll sort it out, figure out. What's next for you?
What next? I still have some runway. I still have some runway left. I'm not as young as I look. But Kenya is a silicon savannah, right?
Yes.
And I look at innovation and there's so much disruption. I think there'll be a phase in my career where I'll remove the tie.
Yes.
And put on a half jacket.
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
get into fintech and do something interesting.
Good decision that you came.
Yes, I think there is that phase that that might be the last dance.
Yes.
I think, but I still have some runway in finance, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So watch this space.
Wow, I like that. It's a good place to end it. I should mention that previous guests who've come on here have made serious announcements in their corporate journey. We don't know what happens when you come to the headhunter, and can only wish you the very best in your journey. Machi Mugambi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Laban. Thank you. Good talking to you.
Don't get these guests anywhere else other than the headhunter. Always a pleasure to have you on board. Stay tuned, and of course, we'll be right back next week, same time, same place. And thank you to all our sponsors as well. Thank you so much for the support you give to us. Please get your notebooks ready, because we'll be coming back with a lot more of the leadership insights. Goodbye for now.